My fellow travelers, our friendly poet Virgil has led you to the ninth circle of the LZ, and it's so good to have you back. Emerging news, as our leader of these 9 circles has posted yet another emoji not that long after the previous update, which was primarily a PSVR 2 update with some little fixes here and there. For the uninitiated, when Sean Murray posts an emoji, it's about to go down, and what will likely happen this week, this is just fresh off of the end of a currently running expedition where you can earn a ship in the Nexus by completing that particular emergence or whatever, you know the thing, the multiplayer thing. Sorry, I just got a COVID booster shot and I'm all over here like, woo, with the brain. But anyway, in this video, we want to talk about what we know so far and check up in the cards that plap up right now, because my previous video, which is kind of going nuclear with about 23,000 views as of recording, that highlights a leak that happened just previously about a week or so ago about station and space station overhauls. So that's the footage that's been playing here. This was discovered by a modder who was sort of fishing around in the files. Generally, with every update, there is some level of stuff that can be found in the files for the PC version of the game that we discover. We've discovered previous things before that have actually come to fruition in updates that followed those discoveries, and now what you're likely seeing is what I think is going to be the launch of these new overhauled space stations. So, to recap what that video does, and of course you can go check out that video too, but what was plucked from the files is sort of brand new procedurally generated space stations. And space stations have sort of not been touched for several years, right? We had the Beyond update a few years back, 3 or 4 years back, which increased the size of the starships that you fly around, pretty much for the sake of really enhancing the VR experience, because that was the original update to launch VR. So I can't imagine going back to the smaller ships now, because they're the size of a Mazda Miata compared to your actual Traveler. But what they didn't change was the size of the space stations, and actually the space stations have largely been mostly the same. To be fair, they did add new space stations with one of the updates last year, one of the better updates, the Outlaws update, which sort of added more pirate-like structures, or more pirate-like space stations. They're really awesome. But it looks like space stations are getting a complete overhaul. Now, I could be wrong. They might punt this content out to another future update, but it's very rare to see something in the files for No Man's Sky and have it not come to fruition at this point. I know that we'd seen elevators for space building at some point. Those still have not made it into the game for whatever reason. I don't know if they were just sort of testing them at some point and it made it into that particular slice of the game. Now, there are other rumored items that have been rumored for probably about 2 years now. A lot of us have been begging for a water overhaul as well. If it's one thing that kind of has gone without attention over the years is the sort of water shader. The water in the game kind of looks boring and abysmal. You can't aim your camera upwards because it would kind of break the smoke and mirrors of having your travelers swim in third person. And overall, it's just kind of, it's the one thing that's not caught up with the aesthetic of the rest of the game, a lot of which has been overhauled at this point to be more visually pleasing. So that's something that we're hoping for as well. About 2 years ago, they instituted a sort of new part of those space stations as well, that sort of big orb in the back that you see the back of space stations these days. Nothing really came of that. It got a little bit of a feature update, but there's this station override that they introduced that really virtually does nothing currently. So a lot of folks in the community have been really frustrated with how long it's taken to kind of flesh that out. These space stations look incredible. We've been showing them in the video here for pretty much the whole thing, and I'm pretty impressed with the versions that they found so far. However, that the interiors stayed the same, and there's been a lot of speculation in the community. My friend Captain Steve has put out some excellent videos of some of the possibilities with these structures. You can absolutely tell tell that the entrance of the new space station, which is kind of sort of housing the old interiors, they don't quite fit together. So what I'm thinking we'll likely see is that entire entrance overhauled, made way bigger, and the interiors of space stations are going to be much more attractive and probably much more useful, I would imagine. Now, story-wise, No Man's Sky and the sort of previous updates have kind of in the lore hinted at other things that I really wouldn't get your hopes up for. You know, they've been talking about this realm of glass thing. There's still a lot of things that have been implemented in previous updates that are virtually useless, like the boundary failures that happen on certain planets. And I'm really hoping to see that they put some use to those things with this update. That's been kind of a big criticism that I've had about No Man's Sky over the years, is that they'll kind of plop something into one of the updates that's kind of mundane and doesn't really have any use, and then they'll maybe get to fleshing that out, you know, a year or two later. But I can tell you the last couple of updates have been very mixed in reception. I liked the Waypoint update beforehand. I thought that was okay. Fractals, not so much. It was kind of a boring update. And that's only because I'm not a VR player and I have no use for PSVR 2. I don't plan on buying VR. It's kind of a niche thing, and it makes my head hurt just thinking about playing with it. But, and so they'd spent a lot of time working with VR. Even Sony has said, well, I think there was a story just this last week that it hasn't moved that many units. And I really wonder if the time was worth it to spend that. I think it probably was, because they had a VR already flesh out to port over and move over to the PSVR 2. But I want to read your comments, my friends. I want to hear from you. What does the devil emoji mean? What do you think it's called? What do you think it's going to have? And we will likely see that update fall this week, probably on Wednesday, if we were to go by previous cadence. And of course, keep it right here in the LZ for more future content for No Man's Sky and all other things gaming.